Classical Conversations presents Refining Rhetoric with CEO Robert Bortons, a podcast where faith, business, politics, and classical education meet. Join us as we use the classical tools of rhetoric to seek truth in every arena of life.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of Refining Rhetoric. Today, we'll find out if the case against Donald Trump is going to help or hurt him in everything that's going on, so you can be well informed. And you may not know that I was a never Trumper in 2016, leading up to the presidential election between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And the main reason was I didn't feel like Donald Trump was really qualified in the sense that he seemed to have he was a New York liberal, that he had issues, that the media was just attacking him left and right. He seemed to be putting his foot in the mouth over and over again. And I just didn't really trust him. And not that I trusted Hillary Clinton, or maybe I was going to vote third party. I don't know, but I just felt like, we knew the Clintons are just about lining their own pockets and that they would probably be kind of moderates. And so I was just considering who I was going to vote for, if I was going to vote at all. And really what changed my mind was talking to people who had been at some of these Trump events that made national news and how the news portrayed Donald Trump, and just the feedback from eyewitnesses that I received. And I realized that if people who hate my worldview hate Donald Trump, then maybe I need to reconsider my position. And so since then, I've become a fan of him in the sense that I think he has a lot of good policies. Obviously, like everyone else, would love for him to lay off Twitter and other things. But we've just seen the media portray Trump in a way that is inaccurate and false, and has made it so that many people believe things about Trump and things that Trump has said that he really hasn't. And so with all the faults that Trump has, I think we all need to just understand the situation and how he's being portrayed by the media today and everything that's going on. And that can help us really understand what this case is all about, as Donald Trump is in court facing a possible felony. It's a novel case, which means basically they're trying to do something that's never been done before. And we'll go through what that means. So the first article that I want to talk about is reshared on MSN. Trump New York's criminal trial to mark milestone in American politics. And it says the trial marks an extraordinary moment even for Trump, raising the prospect that he could become a convicted felon before a single vote is cast. It also risks further inflaming tensions between Americans who see Trump as a serial offender and those who agree with his assertion that he's the victim of Democrat witch hunt. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's case is focused on hush money payments to a porn star, Stormy Daniels, to keep voters in the dark about the alleged affairs before the 2016 election. It is widely seen as the least consequential of Trump's 4 criminal prosecutions, but a guilty verdict would nevertheless put his freedom at risk and raise doubts about his ability to lead the nation, end quote.
So this is really interesting to me, Robert, because what you described earlier about starting off as a never Trumper, I feel like that kind of echoes mine and a lot of my friends' sentiments. Like, none of us were particularly excited to have a Trump in office. We thought it would probably be schismatic for the country. But the more we saw people rail against things he was saying and just outright lies about his character, it drew into question a lot of my reasons why was I averse to him. I mean, I think I'm still of the opinion that it is a further schisming of the American people. Like now, because there are so many people pushing against Trump, it makes me want to support him. It's that further tribal bifurcation into the two-party system. And so it's frustrating because, especially now with these court cases, it's really hard to parse out what's true and what's not. And as we get further down into the weeds of it, it looks more and more like the courts are intentionally obstructing him from his campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about what else is going on. So the first part, and by the time you are watching this, they might already have picked their jurors. But day one, they saw, I think, about 9 jurors make it through the initial set of questions, and these individuals will be tasked with, really being the blind justice, with understanding the ins and outs of the case. Are the witnesses credible? Do they have a history of being accurate or not? And just is there even a case to be made?
Yeah, a
So
question: how do you get jurors for a case like this? Is that why we've imported all the immigrants recently? Because we need people that don't know who Trump is?
yeah, that's a good question. I believe I saw that there's like 50 questions they ask, and one of the key ones is, can you be non-biased in this? So, presumably, people who will be honest will answer that, because Trump is so polarizing. Those who might be never Trumpers don't care. 28% of people in a recent poll said that they're willing to cheat to win the election. So, roughly 25% of these people could be Republicans, could be Democrats, could be libertarians or communists, are willing to lie, do whatever it takes to win. So we can expect that probably 25% of the jury pool will be tainted for the best case scenario, if not more. There's many people who believe that if you're a conservative, you can't get a fair trial in New York or in DC, which is reminiscent of the pre-Civil War era in the Deep South with their court system. So definitely something that can be scary for all of us, because we believe in having blind justice here in the United States. And that's really the main pinnacle and principle we have to have in order for us to remain a country.
Courts already have like a colossal issue with people being able to remain unbiased, no matter the person, and being able to let the evidence speak for the standards of the case. You're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, and I think that that's already really hard for people to set aside whatever bias they're going into a case with, or whatever evidential things might persuade them and say, well, we don't know for sure that they did it, but if they did, they'd be an awful person. I think this is similar to like sports doping scandals. We've got an American people that both sides are convinced the other side is cheating in some capacity. And so more and more they're saying, well, then if everybody's cheating, I hope we are. I hope we're cheating the right way. How do we get back away from that? What sort of steps could the US take to try to
Mm.
curtail some of these election issues?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the election integrity issues are not bipartisan, except for the elected officials. The majority of Americans believe in voter ID. Most Americans want to have a secure election, no matter what the results are. And every time that the system can be destroyed or just doubt added to the system, it benefits those who want to see the system destroyed, who want to see our Western culture destroyed, because anyone who believes in the principles of our shared Western beliefs would share with this whole idea of our Constitution, and that people are innocent until proven guilty. Our founding fathers tried to create a justice system where they would rather a guilty person be let off than an innocent person be thrown in jail. And of course, I think we can see just that people who are guilty of crimes, who might get off with the first one because there's not enough evidence, they usually do more and more crimes, and they'll eventually be caught, versus an innocent person being thrown into jail really doesn't have a whole lot of opportunity to prove his innocence in the future. And so the state or the government has, unlimited funds, versus individuals, they have to either go bankrupt or raise funds from other people in order to defend themselves, which is why so many people caught in these J6 type events, or these court cases, are pleading guilty to lesser crimes to avoid jail sentences. We saw a lot of that in Georgia, with plead guilty to something that was, a $50 fine. The headline was that this person pled guilty in this conspiracy, but in reality, they basically were, pleading guilty to a parking ticket level crime, but you got your headline and the people got off. So everyone, quote unquote, wins, except for the integrity of our election and the integrity of our government. And, that brings up, just this novel case. This is an article from Vox. Vox is definitely left-winging, news articles. And I think this headline says it all. The dubious legal theory at the heart of the Trump indictment explained. No one knows if Donald Trump can be prosecuted for the hush money payment to Stormy Daniels. Of course, they're taking this from a left-wing view. It is unclear that the felony statute that Trump is accused of violating actually applies to him. And so I think when we go back to that idea of blind justice, is even the left-wing news agents understand that this is a novel, this is unprecedented, that there's not any, legal theory that is standing on solid grounding behind this persecution and prosecution. And so things like this can unite the country because, a person who might not want to read right-wing leaning articles will go to Vox for theirs and say, look, yeah, we don't like Donald Trump. We think he's terrible for America. We think he's a terrible human being. But the fact is the justice system is not working in this case, which should really trouble all of us, that a state entity can just charge you for a crime with no precedent of anyone else being charged for that crime, and can force you to really spend your time, energy, and finances defending yourself, even if the likelihood of you being found guilty is extremely low, and so low, in fact, that a similar case has already been prosecuted. And those accusing Donald Trump of these things actually lost the case and had to pay his previous legal fees, which, of course, and thrown in jail. So I just want to move on quickly. So Stormy Daniels, who's at the center of this case, there was a previous case where they were suing Trump, similar type of case, and they lost. And Stormy Daniels actually was required to pay Trump's attorney and legal fees. And so this is from CNN. It says Daniels was ordered to pay Trump's attorneys just over $120,000 in legal fees. That's on top of more than the $500,000 in court order payments to Trump's attorneys she's already been ordered to pay. So a earlier set of circumstances and an earlier court has found that Stormy Daniels, who's one of the leading individuals that is going to be testifying against Trump, has already been ordered to pay her $620,000. So, you can imagine that you try a court case in one jurisdiction, you're found innocent in such an extreme way that the other individual actually has to pay for your lawyers. And then another jurisdiction is coming in and filing something that's very similar, but under a different set of laws, hoping for a different outcome.
I don't think anyone is under any sort of illusion that these are concrete things that are lobbying and throwing at Trump. We're well outside of jurisprudence on all of these cases. I think even the most staunchant liberal would have to look at this and say, no, we don't like him. We don't want him to have a shot at being president again. We're trying to incarcerate him because we don't want him to be president. It has nothing to do with going after this particular billionaire. We have lots of billionaires that do evil things. We know about them. We don't worry about them. This in particular, we're looking for anything we can throw at him because we want to obstruct him and we want to obstruct the election. This is no different than what's going on in say, Brazil, where they're trying to ban any of the opposition party from being able to talk on their platform. It's just that for some reason, we've decided that it is okay to stretch the law wherever and however possible in order to incarcerate, to prosecute, to defame someone.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's heartbreaking because really, if we don't have a justice system that is functioning properly in the United States, then all of us are going to be in significant trouble. The other lead witness is Michael Cohen, and he's actually been sentenced in federal prison for various crimes, including campaign finance violation, tax evasion, and lying to Congress. And so this is the other lead witness, someone who's already been thrown in jail for lying under oath. And this is another huge problem. I think ABC News had a great article that really, I think, wraps up kind of the plan here for what the Democrats are doing, and know that like Alvin Bragg, who's putting this on, he's getting paid big bucks to give speeches to Democrat donors in order to compensate him for his time in doing all this. So it's really a incestuous relationship, and I'm not saying Republicans don't do similar things upon occasion, but it's really interesting. So currently, Trump is leading by roughly 1 point nationwide over Biden, 46 to 45%. But the polls have indicated that a conviction could be a game changer for the former president. And how will Trump campaign from court? This question is really, I think, behind the heart of this entire prosecution. They know that Trump drives crowds. We saw his Chick-fil-A video in Georgia where, African-American females who typically vote for the Democrat Party are saying, Trump's giving us hope. He is a genuine human being. The plan is for Trump to remain in court. They are forcing him to come into court every single day. He's actually going to miss his son's high school graduation. The judge is not letting him leave, which is really ridiculous. Trump is not a flight risk, which again, the unprecedented amount of bail that they made him pay. Bail is for a flight risk individual. Trump is running for president of the United States. He is not a flight risk. New York lets people who commit all sorts of heinous crimes out on no bail. Democrats all over the country have ran on the platform of no bail, but Donald Trump, who is not a flight risk, is required to spend his money that he could spend on campaigning on bail, despite not being a flight risk. And now he's being forced to sit in court, despite there's really not a whole lot of reason for him to have to be there on a daily basis, especially no reason for him not to be allowed to go to his son's graduation. Maybe by now, maybe the court changes its mind on that. But just the fact that you have a judge that is forcing a father to miss this momentous moment in a child's life over really, as Vox called it, a court case that is very suspect, is just another tragedy and another way that they're trying to hurt Trump any way they can instead of finding justice.
I think you're circling around the point. They're turning their prosecutory attacks as a way to hold him in place. They're basically cudgeling his ability to pay for and fund his own campaign, and then they're restricting his movement and making him stay at the courthouse and not being allowed to go and campaign. Is this all just because they know that the other candidate, the one he's running against, isn't really probably able to do that? It doesn't have the either sound body or sound mind enough to be campaigning at the level that Trump would, and so they want to even the playing field?
I mean, it could be. We know that Trump drives huge crowds, that people really enjoy listening to him speak if you are a Trump supporter, and that as people who are not Trump supporters, as they go to these events. I remember articles from left-wing news articles where reporters would go to Trump speeches looking for these evil MAGA people and just saying how nice everyone was and how they really didn't receive the welcome that they were expecting. And of course, Donald Trump loves to make fun of the media, and for good reason, in my opinion. Doesn't help him out with his coverage bent, but if that's the way he likes to play it, I guess. So I understand why people would be turned off by that. But I do think, just like I and you talked about being never Trumpers at one point, I believe, and the question that I have for the people who are listening that might not be Trump supporters, is this case going to backfire? The fact that, I just think about, O.J. Simpson just died, that case of the century, and they're, publishing videos and articles and talking about it on a daily basis. You've already have left-wing news agencies saying that this is really not a case about justice. Even those kind of center left like ABC and CNN type news agencies are pointing out all the problems with this case. Could this backfire? And I found this interesting article from Sasha Stone, a former Joe Biden supporter. And she writes on her Substack, 6 years ago, I stood a few feet away from Joe Biden at a fundraiser and was certain he was the only person who could save this country from Donald Trump in 2020. However, by the end of the election, I would leave the Democrat Party for good. I saw them as corrupt, too powerful, and dangerous to the very democracy they now claim they want to protect. Now I wake up every morning in a panic that our last best hope for ending the monopoly of power on the left rests on the imperfect shoulders of Donald Trump. She just goes on to talk about that this lawfare made her a Trump supporter. She reiterates that she felt like a coward because she kept saying, I'm not a Trump supporter, and now she is coming out of the closet, as it were. She says, it was never just about Trump. It was always about the people who voted for Trump and chose him to represent them in government. Didn't they matter at all? No, because they were demonized as racist and thrown away like human garbage.
It's also tiresome.
Yeah.
What she said is exactly right. The fact that Trump is our last bastion, our final hope to try to turn the tide, is just completely dumbfounding.
It's ludicrous.
So what do we do to right the ship? Because I know our hope's not in this world, but man, I hope the world improves. We've got 4 years till the next election. What can we do on the ground level to get better candidates?
Yeah. So I think, ultimately it starts with us. It starts with us being engaged in the system and, supporting better candidates, whether it's volunteering our time or energy, getting involved in politics. Sometimes people say, Robert, you talk about politics too much, or I don't care about politics. Well, politics is really just about people. And I want to say politics is really interested in you. Like, they care about you, not in the sense that they want what's best for you. They don't necessarily care about your freedom, but they do want you to do exactly what they want. They want your behaviors to be not framed after the Lord, after what's in the Bible. They want to really frame the world after their own vision. And so if you sit idly on the sidelines, that's what we're going to get. So if you're not registered to vote, go get registered. If you are registered to vote, make sure your family's registered to vote. Don't think that you can just ignore this problem. We are going to have to face the fruit of a society that has abandoned God, that has embraced statism on both sides of the aisle. But we can't rebuild. We cannot, save what we have if we don't get engaged now. And, we do ultimately have Christ as our King. And we are not citizens of this planet or this country. If you're a Christian, you're a citizen of heaven. But because we're in a constitutional republic, not a democracy, we have responsibilities, and freedom requires choices, and choices demands us thinking about them and being active and engaged and making sure that we're not sitting this one out. And so it can be disheartening when you send quote unquote good people to Washington or your state capital, and they immediately get up there and start voting in the opposite way that they ran, or they say they're against this, but they keep putting in policy that makes those things bigger and stronger. And you see that especially on, really both sides of the aisle. Very few people on either party actually go up there and try to do what they told you that they're going to do. So it can be disheartening, but don't give up, because in time we will reap our reward, and we need to be prepared to either save this civilization or rebuild the next one. And we need to do it not just for ourselves, but for our children and our grandchildren. And, we are, I think, headed off the cliff, but what are we going to do to be able to look our children's children in the eye and say, I didn't sit idly by while this country went into ruins, that I did my part? Because I mean, I always say you can vote yourself into communism or socialism, but really the only way out is to shoot your way out. Although I did Argentina might be coming out without any guns or bullets being used with Milley down there. So perhaps that age-old quote will no longer be relevant, but it is very difficult for us to steer this ship, and we need to elect principled Christians that will use the Bible as their guide for policy. If you have, a primary that hasn't occurred yet, understand who your elected officials could be, get behind them, to spend a couple hours researching them. And if you've already had a primary, just vote for the lesser of two evils, because that's always going to be our vote. But get to know them so that you can have influence with whoever gets elected, and you can help steer them and keep them on the straight and narrow path. And so that's really our obligation as Christians, is to be involved in our community and in our culture, because if we're not defining it, other people will define it for us, and that will lead to harm on a tremendous level for all of humanity. All right, until next time, keep listening to Refining Rhetoric. I'm sure we'll get more and more news about Trump than any of us want to hear about, and be sure to register and vote. Thanks for tuning in today. God bless. Hey everyone, I want you to know about our newest Copper Lodge Library book, English Epic Poetry. English Epic Poetry is a collection with Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, the Canterbury Tales, selections from Paradise Lost, and it introduces them with historical context, tips for reading epic poetry, as well as footnotes that will help you while reading the text. Sometimes we think about, how can this text be Christian? What does it tell about the relationship we have with Christ? And even in less overtly religious poems like Sir Gawain and the Canterbury Tales, we find Christian themes like courage, forgiveness, and the right use of power. And so go today to copperlodgelibrary.com to see the entire epic collection of books that we have, including the newest one, English Epic Poetry. So go to copperlodgelibrary.com today, or the classicalconversationsbooks.com website to make your purchase. Now back to the show.
Welcome to Classical Crypto with Will today. I'm so excited to join you, and let's catch up on some major events that have come and gone, starting with the Bitcoin halving. We've talked about it over and over and over again. It happened April 20th. That was last Saturday, reducing that reward that the miners get for mining Bitcoin. Again, it went from 6.25 to 3.125, reducing that, which always creates an insane amount of demand. Now, around the time of the halving, people who are new to Bitcoin are like, man, it should be skyrocketing. That usually does not happen, and it didn't happen in this case. It's just kind of a little choppy. But after a few months, that demand usually goes through the roof. So that's really interesting to stay up on. And I'll be updating you guys with the price of Bitcoin. We'll see what happens. Further, going back a week before the 20th to the 13th of April, when Iran attacked Israel, when they sent all those drones, that overwhelming force towards Israel, how did the financial markets respond? Well, everything dipped a little bit, but cryptocurrency and Bitcoin specifically decreased that day 13%. So definitely there was a drawback there. I think the world thought that World War III was most likely starting, and there was a little bit of a sell-off there. I'm glad it wasn't more. The price seemed to recover over the next few days, but definitely was a little bit of a dip on the road. In further news, the Chinese Communist Party, because they're who run Hong Kong, China, voted, and basically the Chinese Bitcoin ETF was approved. Now, this was something that was in the news, but if you've been paying attention to crypto in China, the government of China has banned cryptocurrency and Bitcoin over and over and over and over again, does not have a healthy relationship with digital money. So when I saw this a couple months ago that I was coming up for a vote, I was like, oh man, that'll be shot down. I was very surprised to see that ETF was approved, but there are some major caveats, as I thought would happen. They're only going to let 3 institutions offer those ETFs, and they're going to only allow certain businesses or accredited investors to get into it. Basically, if you're a common person in mainland China, you will not be able to, as you cannot now, you will not be able to purchase cryptocurrency, at least not legally, especially Bitcoin, and you will not be able to participate in those ETFs. So I know that the Chinese people as a whole are disappointed with what happened, but the government, and the way I read into it is that the Chinese Communist Party was like, hey, look, if crypto and digital assets are going to take over the world, we definitely want to participate ourselves. So they set up a way to be custodians and still be controllers of who gets into those funds and who don't. But they definitely are expanding their exposure. This has been Classical Crypto with Will. I will keep you up to date on current events as it relates to cryptocurrency. Talk next time.
Thank you for listening to Refining Rhetoric with Robert Bortons. Want more? Make sure to subscribe so you won't miss an episode. You can also follow us on social media to continue the conversation, and visit classicalconversations.com/rhetoric to find out how you can join a local homeschool community.